Welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm Lauren Magarino, and this is Scripps Newsline. For 10 weeks leading to the first political convention, Scripps News is covering the key issues in our special initiative, Path to the White House. This is in collaboration with local Scripps stations across the country. We are going in depth on the issues that matter most to voters. And our Path to the White House runs through Scripps Country, which has stations in 7 of the 8 battleground states that will likely decide the next president. Now, this week we are focusing on the politically charged issue of guns and crime. And typically, when you think about guns in America, you can't help but think about the National Rifle Association, or the NRA, right? Up until this year, the organization had ultimate lobbying power. The group was able to stall or stop bills in Congress that were meant to put more restrictions on guns. It had the numbers to back them up, after all. In 2022, the NRA received $97 million from membership dues. But even that was down by more than 40% from its peak year in 2018. And it's prompting the question tonight, is the NRA losing its grip on the politics of guns? Because there may be a new gun lobbying group taking the reins. The National Shooting Sports Foundation, or NSSF, bills itself as the trade association for the firearms industry, with membership including thousands of manufacturers, distributors, and firearms retailers. Now, reports say the organization spent more than $5.4 million on federal lobbying last year, which was more than twice as much as the NRA. All of this comes as the NRA's leadership is in turmoil. Longtime CEO Wayne LaPierre stepped down this year, and it came before top officials were set to face a civil trial over fraud and mismanagement allegations. So you can see why the organization's annual meeting in Dallas this weekend is a big deal. About 75,000 people are expected to be in attendance. And Scripps News national correspondent John Moan gives us a preview of what's to come.
Donald Trump says he's the best friend American gun owners have ever had.
During my 4 years, nothing happened, and there was great pressure on me having to do with guns. We did nothing. We didn't yield.
In February, he appeared before an NRA event in Pennsylvania to a welcoming crowd.
Your Second Amendment will always be safe with me as your president.
Trump and most other Republicans who believe that guns make law-abiding people safe also believe staying on the good side of the National Rifle Association is good politics.
We do live in the world that the NRA has created.
Historian Andrew McKevitt wrote the book Gun Country, examining the power firearms and the NRA has on America.
Since the late 1970s, they have allied themselves with the rise of the new right. They've integrated themselves into the Republican Party.
Founded in 1871, the NRA operated for decades as a promoter of gun safety and recreational shooting. But at its 1977 convention, it shifted directions to gun rights, becoming a part of the conservative movement amid culture wars politics.
They have managed to succeed in liberalizing the gun laws of about 40 states in the United States and pushing presidents to nominate what is now a clear majority on the Supreme Court of justices who are pro-gun.
The NRA counted 6 million members in 2018. Legal filings reveal that number is down to 4.3 million in 2023, as is revenue. The election finance watchdog group Open Secret says the NRA is spending far less to support federal candidates too, about $29 million in 2020. 46% less than 4 years earlier. Scandal has tarnished the group as well. A New York jury found that its former CEO squandered millions of donor dollars in personal perks like vacations, private jets, and expensive clothes.
We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
In 2018, a 17-year-old boy fatally shot 8 students and 2 teachers at Santa Fe High School just east of Houston. The then NRA president Oliver North said the Second Amendment is not the disease and the solution is the toughening of school security around the nation. Democrats called for more gun control measures. The Republican-dominated legislature in Texas instead doled out more money to harden school security. The political response played out typically as it does in America.
That pain has kind of turned into drive and spite.
Rhonda Hart, whose daughter Kimberly Vaughn died in the shooting, is challenging an NRA-backed Republican in an uphill bid for Congress. That kind of support may not be once what it was.
I love that they're falling apart at the seams. That's great for them.
Donald Trump is again scheduled to appear at the NRA's national convention. He's the keynote speaker, May 18th in Dallas.
And John, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is expected to deliver a keynote speech this weekend. What would you say is the significance of his appearance?
Well, by today's news, the timing is fortuitous and rather coincidental because Governor Greg Abbott just granted the pardon of a man named Daniel Perry, who was convicted last year in the murder of a Black Lives Matter protester. He was involved in an armed confrontation with another armed man who was called, 28-year-old Garrett Foster, who he himself was carrying an AK-47 rifle. At the time of that confrontation, Perry was an Uber driver, and people in the crowd said that Perry, in testimony during that trial, had tried to run protesters over. There was then a confrontation in which Foster died. Now, when Governor Abbott offered that pardon today, he cited Texas's own Stand Your Ground laws and said they are amongst the strongest in the nation. We can only speculate, but that may be a theme of a keynote speech he's expected to deliver on Saturday.
Certainly timely. And you mentioned permitless carry laws in your story. Where does that stand on a national level?
By my count, we're now at 29 states that have permitless carry, meaning you don't have to get a gun license to carry a firearm in public. Texas passed one of those types of laws in 2021.
All right, John Moan in Texas for us tonight. John, thank you very much for your reporting. Now, our next guest supports the NRA. He's been a member on and off since childhood, he says, and he became a life member around 12 years ago. But he also says he's a vocal antagonist to current NRA leadership and Wayne LaPierre. Rob Pincus joins us now. He is the executive vice president of 2AO.org, a Second Amendment organization. Thank you so much for joining us on Scripps Newsline. After the fallout of Wayne LaPierre, the declining membership, the loss of funding, how far gone is the NRA as we know it?
Well, it's savable, it's salvageable, and hopefully over the next few days, we're going to see some significant public steps as well as some internal steps towards real reform. This was never about one person, but Wayne LaPierre certainly is a big part of the problem, and his resignation, which takes him out of the public eye, certainly improves the organization. It doesn't fix everything. Of course, there's a lot of concern that he may still be pulling the strings in the background because his leadership, the regime that he installed, is still in power. But that may change thanks to some membership action and some brave board members, honestly, who I think will be taking even more action this weekend.
Well, let me just peel back a layer there because you say regime pulling the strings. What indicates to you that that is still happening at this point, despite the fact that he has stepped down?
Well, the people that are in power, the officers, certainly the legal counsel, Bill Brewer, the people that are the head of the most important committees, the people that are absolutely calling the shots at the NRA are exactly the same group of people who have, in some cases, literally the exact same people who are pulling all those same strings, pushing the same buttons, self-dealing, all of the malfeasance, all of the actual corruption that we've seen now through the trial that's taken place in New York. Of course, with Wayne LaPierre himself being found guilty, as well as others, over $6 million officially is the tally. The damage that was done to the NRA underneath of the Wayne LaPierre leadership, in air quotes, again, regime, cabal, whatever word you want to put on it, that conspiracy to take care of themselves, take care of their friends, and not take care of the Second Amendment rights that all Americans are entitled to, not just conservative Republican Americans and not just NRA members, but again, all Americans. The damage that was done is incredibly significant. And while the bell was rung by Oliver North and others in 2018 and 2019, this broke open very publicly at that time as a fight inside of the gun community and certainly for the soul and the future of the NRA. Unfortunately, it took outside action on the New York Attorney General's office to really start to initiate significant change. And again, the members have spoken. This year, there will be 4 very vocal reformists added to the board of directors. That'll take place over the next few days at the annual convention. But as of tonight, while we're having this conversation, there is a private existing board of directors dinner that's happening right now where the votes are being whipped to keep that regime in place and keep the power from going back to the NRA members, honestly.
I mean, I know your stance on this. Very clear off the top, we said that you would like to see a change in, the leadership and that this is something that's put in the past. But you mentioned the conflict within, the NRA community, if you will, as a result of all of this. How contentious is that really? How do members feel overall about how this is playing out? Are more like you, where they want to see a change, or are more kind of sticking with the old guard?
Well, if you look at it, I think that over the last 5 to 6 years, we've seen a significant shift towards reform, or unfortunately for the NRA, apathy. One of the important things to remember here is that while pro-gun control, anti-gun politics, the rhetoric, the organizations will all point to the NRA as a very easy straw man or boogeyman. The reality is the gun community and gun owners in the United States are incredibly more diverse than the NRA. The NRA, again, pivoted towards socially conservative Americans, mostly white Americans, a long time ago, and really lost the representation. And quite honestly, I think lost their power to lobby, lost their power to truly try to change minds, and really became a de facto funding organization for the Republican Party, for people who were already pro-gun. And that's where they lost a lot of power inside the gun community. Over the last few years, they've also lost a lot of power very publicly in the social conversation about guns. They've lost a lot of respect. And even, I think, conservative Republican pro-gun candidates have wanted to be arm's reach from Wayne LaPierre and the NRA, especially at the state level, where the fight really happens more often than not. And the states, as your piece covered in the previous segment, 29 states now have permitless carry. That's huge. In 1990, there was one. The state was Vermont. So we've seen a huge evolution at the state level. But the NRA just isn't part of the conversation. NSSF, Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, and many others representing gun-owning minorities who don't fit the normal mold of the NRA member. All of us have been very concerned. What's changed now in the last few months since the New York Attorney General's case has found Wayne LaPierre guilty very officially, what's changed now is the members are speaking and they're voting for reformists. And I think that board membership that is 76 people, the 76th member is always voted for in person at the convention over the weekend. It could be votes in the 30s, very close to see who does take over. And if we can get to 37, or if fewer than the full board shows up, it may only take, some other number lower, closer to 30.
Yeah.
If we can get the right number of votes, which it looks like we will see a regime change and a brighter future for the NRA and gun owners.
Would it be competitive enough, if that happens, to regain that support that you say has really drained out of the NRA and has gone to other organizations like NSSF, down the road, especially with an election year coming up?
I don't think so. I think just the simple fact that most American gun owners realize that while Trump is a better choice for gun owners than Biden on the gun issue, Trump also is very disingenuous at best about what happened during his first term. His first term as president, he did take executive action to ban bump stocks. He did say things like, let's take the guns and figure it out later when it came to red flag laws. He's really no friend to American gun owners. And he never even mentioned being pro-gun or supporting gun rights. As a very liberal New Yorker, his entire life living in the most restrictive state in the country, or restrictive city in the country when it came to gun laws, he never lifted a finger to protect gun owners. But the fact that he's on stage with the NRA, of course, this is the old regime that's made this decision. I think there'll be most American gun owners, as we see, less than 10% at its height ever were NRA members. I think that we'll see people waiting to see what the new leadership of the NRA does, hoping that we can get more people involved and more support through that organization.
Rob Pincus, Executive Vice President of 2AO.org, a Second Amendment organization. Thank you so much for your time and your insight, really peeling back the curtain on the NRA and all the inner workings of it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
When we return, guns play a major role in the lives of many Americans, whether it be for protection or leisure. We take a look at how the gun culture was formed and why U.S. gun ownership is the largest in the world. Stay with us.